Hello everybody, welcome to the video on Compliance Officer interview questions and answers from Career Ride. Compliance Officer is a very important position in all big and medium-sized organizations. Compliance to rules and regulations governing the business and each department is very important to avoid the penalties and loss of reputation also. At the same time, companies also expect compliance to internal policies and procedures to run the business smoothly. So, be it finance, banking, customer care, HR, cybersecurity, or any other area, compliance officer is an important position to ensure that everything is in place. In today's video, let's see 9 basic questions asked to the compliance professionals during the interview, irrespective of the industry and department. If you're really keen on cracking your next interview as a compliance professional, make sure you watch the complete video without skipping any parts of it. Ready? Fantastic. Let's start. Question number 1. What do you mean by compliance? Now, this is a very basic question that you must be prepared to answer. If you see the word compliance in the simplest sense, it means adhering to laws, regulations, guidelines, and specifications relevant to your business and industry. But if you look deeper in the corporate sense, compliance also ensures that the team follows the internal policies, procedures, legal standards, and ethical practices that have been laid out. Let's try to understand this corporate sense thing with the help of an easy example. When you dial a call center number, do you remember hearing this message? This call may be recorded for training and quality control purposes. Have you ever thought, why is this done? This is done to ensure that the call center agents comply with the customer service guidelines established by the company. And just in case some of them are faltering, a training program can be organized for them and other employees also. The compliances could be related to regulations on health and safety, data protection, anti-corruption, environment, labor laws, and many other things also. So almost all the departments have to comply to some or the other rules and guidelines. Now see, the candidates who get successful at this interview don't stop just here. They always add a little more value to their answer. They always try to provide some extra but relevant details while answering the questions. For example, here you can talk a bit about the objectives of the compliance process. You may say the primary objectives of having a compliance process in place are: number 1, avoiding legal penalties and lawsuits, which you may otherwise have to face. The changing requirements of the law and business environment make it even more important to keep an eye on them. The second objective is mitigating the risks that may lead to compliance breaches so that you don't land up in such situations at all. Number 3, building a reputation of ethical behavior and integrity for the organization, attracting more employees, customers, vendors, and other stakeholders to work with you. And lastly, ensuring that the employees act in accordance with the internal procedures and policies. See, it is these little extra details in your answer that help you stand out of the crowd in the interviews. But these details don't occur to anybody on the spot. You need a bit of preparation for them, where you anticipate the questions and think of your answers well in advance. Okay? Now, let's move on to another basic and popular interview question. Question number 2. And the question is, what's the difference between compliance and risk management? Now see, risk management is the process of identifying, assessing and prioritizing the risk so that you can take corrective actions to minimize them. For example, you encrypt the data during transition to avoid the thefts. What is this? This is risk management. Now, on the other hand, compliance here would ensure that the organization follows all the legal requirements and industry standards for data security, conducts regular audits to verify encryption effectiveness, and educates employees on data protection protocols to prevent the breaches. What is this? This is compliance, because here you are trying to adhere to certain rules, laws, and regulations. So you see, compliance is reactive in nature, as you have to adhere to some laws, policies, or regulations. While on the other hand, risk management is proactive, as you work towards it in advance. Secondly, compliance is more objective in nature. because it focuses on specific rules and regulations, while risk management is subjective because here you have to assess, prioritize, measure its impact, and find a solution for future problems. And a lot of these things may actually depend on the perspective of the people also. Lastly, compliance is ethical, means your business or department is doing what it should do. Risk management is about managing a crisis and minimizing its impact. Okay, so these are the basic differences between compliance and risk management, and this question is usually asked at the interviews when you are applying for a compliance professional's position. Okay, let's see question number 3 now, which is again a very important question. Question number 3. What are the various factors that contribute to compliance risks? Now see, compliance risks mean possible negative repercussions of failing to comply with legal, regulatory or industry norms. These could be in the form of large penalties, loss of business prospects, loss of reputation and legal problems also. You must have noticed that whenever a business faces compliance risk, the most common belief is it was intentional or it happened due to inadequate internal controls and lack of effective oversight. While it may be true to a great extent, but there can be a lot of underlying things also to cause this. And the question here expects you to discuss those underlying things. And they can be things such as frequent regulatory changes which make it difficult to stay complied. There could be complexities in business operations and processes which makes compliance difficult. Poorly defined policies that may at times even be hard to understand. It is also possible that insufficient training has been provided to the employees, making it difficult for them to understand what to do, how to do, and actually the gravity of the situation even. Many a times, lax behavior from the management, top management, is also experienced. Intentional misconduct by the employees could be a reason. Then there could be technological vulnerabilities, especially in cyber and other technology driven areas. Corporate culture that does not prioritize compliance and ethics could be one of the reasons. So, the basic thing is non compliance is not always intentional. It could be because of a lot of other things also. Okay, so now that we have already talked about the reasons for the problems, the focus of the interview will slowly shift towards the solutions now. And your next question could be, what best practices would you recommend to ensure that your organization gets the best of its compliance process? So, as we know by now, a good compliance program helps an organization in minimizing its risk of being penalized and earning a bad reputation also in the market. The following 5 best practices ensure that these needs are met effectively without you having to get exhausted. And the first thing to do is establish a clear, simple, and easy to follow compliance framework. Something that's difficult to follow gets dropped very soon. All of us have experienced this. Once the framework is set, you train the employees, run the system, monitor and adjust it. It is very important to establish clear communication channels. These communication channels must be two-sided so that the management on one hand can communicate any changes in the law, regulations and policies, while the team can provide a feedback on what's working for them and what needs to be reconsidered. Okay, this is very, very important. Number 3, continuous monitoring and auditing is very important. Leverage the power of data and technology for this. A compliance framework that is not continuously monitored will get stale and dropped very soon. Document your findings, rework, readjust, and go on. Then have provisions for anonymous feedback. In many sectors and departments, having the provision for anonymous feedback for non-compliance can give you some biggest tips and leads, and we usually miss on them. And lastly, commitment from the management, that is top management, is very important because compliance programs need resources, human resources, technology, time, everything. All of these things are expenses, and without the commitment from the management, you can't really get them. Moreover, what the commitment from the management does is it sets up a tone to foster the culture of accountability and ethical behavior throughout the organization, which really helps in the whole process. Okay, so these are some of the things which, if you follow, can really help you in making your compliance process work very well. Okay, let's move on to question number 5 now. How do you conduct a compliance audit? Now, as all of us know, compliance breaches are quite common and can lead to major losses for the business. And this makes conducting a periodical audit very, very important. Here are some important things that you can do to conduct an effective audit. The first thing is you have to clearly know why are you conducting this audit. For the audit to be fruitful, it is very important to clearly know its purpose and its scope. What risk will it address? You also need to know if any similar audits have been already conducted in the past or not. What was the outcome if they were? Have there been any changes since then that demand this audit to be conducted? Or is it a regular practice that we are following? All these questions help you understand the gravity of the situation and the depth you need to look into. The second important thing is who will conduct the audit. Your team should not just be knowledgeable and skillful, it should also be impartial and objective to dig and report the things correctly. The third important thing to do is carry out a risk assessment to understand the likelihood of facing those risks and their impact. This allows you to deploy your resources and efforts effectively. At this stage, you need to inform the concerned departments and employees about the audit that you are going to conduct. Number 4, review and collect the data. Reviewing the policies, procedures and other records to assess whether they are in compliance with the requirements or not. Employee interviews, vendor interviews can also be great ways to ascertain what's currently happening with the business. And lastly, you analyze your findings and any data that you have collected, prepare a report suggesting the corrective actions to be taken and the associated risks and submit it to the management. So this is how the audit process works. See, as a compliance professional, you may have to work with compliance auditors many a times. You may not be an auditor yourself, but you may have to work with the auditors many a times. The knowledge of these things help you sail through the process easily. Okay, so that is why this question is very, very important, and this is the basic knowledge that you must have. Moving on to question number 6, which is again related to audit. And the question is, what according to you is a good audit report? Now see, as a compliance officer, you may be needed to carry out an internal audit also, where you communicate your findings and suggestions to the management and other stakeholders through an audit report. That is why this question is very important for all compliance professionals, even if you are not an auditor yourself. So a good audit report, first thing is very clear, short, simple and actionable. Following are certain ways to achieve this. The first thing is keep it simple. Avoid tough technical terms and jargons at all costs, because all the readers of your report may not come from the same background, but this audit may have an impact on their department also, or you may need their support also while fixing the things. So that is why it is very important to make sure that they are able to understand it. At the same time, ensure that you don't reveal any confidential information that you don't really mean to. The second thing to do is include an executive summary so that your readers know where you are actually coming from. Give them a context so that they know why was this audit done, what approach did you take, why did you take this approach, and other such things also. The third important thing to do is provide a reference to everything. Don't just make claims that can be verified in your report. To improve the authenticity of your report, provide references to the resources from where you actually obtain these facts and figures. Point your readers to the authoritative documents, provide audit evidence and other insightful data. One important quality of a good report is it drives interest so that your readers feel like finishing the report once they pick it up to read. Improve the clarity and visual appeal by including figures, tables, charts, styling the text, etc. Now, one very important thing. Audit reports don't have to share only the bad news. If there are certain things that are going good, share them as well. They motivate the team and the management to continue or even do better at them. That is why share the good and the bad news both. Record your observations in detail. Use the tricks of 5 C's here. For every issue, address the 5 C's that I have listed here: criteria, condition, cause, consequence, and corrective action that you propose. One thing that really makes the report fruitful is be straightforward with your recommendations. The purpose of the whole exercise is to save the organization from any penalties and bad reputation. Clearly recommend the solutions and consequences of not taking those actions. And lastly, make sure that you have read and reread the report before submission, because after all the exercises that you have done, this is the most valuable document that you are going to submit to the management. Now, you may work in the compliance section of any industry, any department. An effective report will always have these qualities. And that is why this question is very, very important and you must prepare to answer this question. Okay? Because all of these things are not going to occur to you on the spot. Question number 8. What different ways can you use to catch hold of the compliance breaches? So there are various ways that can be used to catch the compliance breaches. You may conduct internal audits, automated monitoring systems can be installed, reporting by the employees can help, surveys and feedback from the employees, customers and stakeholders can be a big resource. If your organization supports incident reporting, that can be a way. Then in this age of technology and data analytics can help tremendously, because any unusual pattern in the data could point towards a compliance breach. Then management reviews, third-party audits can help you. Whistleblower programs, especially for unethical and illegal activities, help tremendously. Then you may also decide on conducting the physical inspections, document reviews regularly. For example, your contracts, records, agreements, and other such documents can help you. Regulatory inquiries that come to you can help you. Customer feedback. Then for compliances related not just to your business but industry as a whole, media monitoring can be a big resource. So these are the different ways which you can use depending upon your need to catch hold of the compliance breaches. And finally, moving on to the last question for today's video. How would you handle a request by a senior executive to violate the company's code of conduct? Now see, this question is basically an attempt to assess your comfortability in dealing with the senior level executives. And these can be really tricky situations. Being a compliance officer, your primary duty is to safeguard the company's interest and reputation. If you are faced with such requests, the most important thing to do is maintain your composure and stay professional in your replies. Listen carefully so that you really understand what they want and what could be the implications of compromising the code of conduct. It is only after you have listened to them carefully that you can explain the outcomes of such requests. A sample answer to this question can be something like, compliance professionals do come across such tricky situations where they do not want to compromise on their integrity, but at the same time, they do not want to show the senior executive also down. If faced with such a situation, I would make sure that I have understood their request correctly first of all. I would then try to calmly explain the code of conduct to them and the implications of any breaches. While doing this, I'll make sure that I remain professional in my language and replies. If there's an alternative to meet their need, I would try to figure it out and suggest it to them. In most of the cases, such executives back off after this much of interaction. But some adamant ones do persist. If need be, I would escalate the matter to the right authorities. At the same time, I would maintain the confidentiality of such events because they have a huge potential to tarnish everyone's reputation. Documenting such interactions is very important to safeguard our own position, which I would do. So friends, with this we come to the end of this video. If you found it useful, do give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends also. If you want me to create more videos on compliance interviews, you can let me know by commenting in the box below. For more such videos, subscribe the channel now. I'll be back with a new video very soon. Till then, bye-bye and take care. Stay connected.